Hello, I'm Terry Cunningham, and this is Keith Ruff. Last year we co-hosted a show called Access Iowa City. Due to a variety of funding issues with that show, it's no longer going to be on. But we decided that we were still interested in doing a show. The Extended Dream Foundation kind of liked what we had done, as did the nice folks at Public Access Television Channel 18. So we're all kind of working together on a new show, which is going to be called Hello, It's Us. The basis for this show is that as a society, it's not you, me, and them. It's basically all us.
Yeah.
And what we hope to show is that, well, the emphasis might be on one group or another. Virtually every business or every organization does in fact have a little involvement with everybody. And that's the kind of stuff that we're going to be focusing on this year. So today is just kind of a little closeout of last year and talking a bit about the shows we did last year, and then an opportunity to talk a little bit about what we hope to do this year and some fun things we think we're going to be able to do with the show, and then be ready to take off. Our first new show taping will be February 7th, and we'll have the folks from NAMI here for that. But, yeah. Comments, Keith?
Basically, the format will be the same. Our aim is to get disability issues out on the forefront so they can be slowly eradicated as we go along. Not saying Terry and I have that power, but we'll bring you the issues that are confronting us as a whole during the year.
Okay. And for examples, last year, our guest ran the gamut from a father and son who shared a love of baseball, and the son happened to have autism, but had almost a photographic memory and could tell you every statistic and every professional player he had ever met, to a gentleman, Jim Stakoviak, at the university, who was on with a variety of assistive technology on kind of the high end of stuff with computers and iPads and voice recognition software and that, to the last folks we had on were several of our current legislators. I think that show probably was one of our more interesting, because it was one of the few shows that I actually prepared questions for. We had 12 questions going into the show, and in 2.5-hour segments, we're able to deal with 3.5 of them. And, you know, it's got some nice comments from the legislators and support, but that one, there was a lot of stuff. We could have gone on for quite a while.
And I do think one change that Terry and I have agreed upon is we love to hear your input. If you can give us your input, so we know where we're going with the show and with the issues.
Yeah. And we're going to have and try using the opportunity this year, as we will sometimes record. Currently we're recording from Uptown Bill's. And what we would like to do is to be able to get some guests on that would work well with an audience, so that the audience could participate and ask questions and have some involvement like that and going on. But there's lots of new things we can try.
Because with the more input we have, the more the issue will move. If we're just sitting here telling you about the issue and there's no input, it's rather difficult to know if we're going in the correct direction.
And this year is going to be a very big year in Iowa as far as the legislature and things that are going on. They'll get deeper into the mental health, disability services, redesign system and try to figure out how exactly that system is going to be funded, how that's going to work, what services are actually going to be in it. At the last we knew, transportation is not going to be considered a core service. Well, that just seems absolutely ridiculous to us and lots of other people, because it doesn't make any difference how nice a home you have or how plentiful employment might be or how accessible social venues or stores or all that kind of stuff is if you have no transportation to get there. You know, that just makes no sense. Last week, the Press Citizen carried several articles about the fact that the supervisors are looking at cutting their participation in the SEATS program and subsidizing city money in the next 3 years to zero. And they're working now and will be over the next several months with the cities of Coralville and Iowa City and several of the smaller communities around to see if they can come up with some kind of a contract that is livable with everybody. The last 3-year contract, of course, who knew what gas prices and things were going to do 3 years ago? And when you're providing a service that is incredibly reliant on gas to get it going, that really takes a chunk. The areas of the aging community and the disability community, a couple weeks ago, the Johnson County Task Force on Aging hosted a public forum with representatives from the Center for Disabilities and Development, with Chris Artley, the Johnson County Director of Mental Health Services, and Ingrid Wenzel, who is the director of the Heritage, I always want to say Hawkeye, Heritage Area Agency on Aging, to bring those two groups together to work and lobby in a united effort. Because when you start looking at it, most of the services that both of those groups need are the same. Whether it's because of an illness or a disability that you need someone to come into your home and help you with daily activities and dressing and that kind of thing, and changing dressings, or it's just because you've aged and you can't do that stuff anymore. The same with lawn care and that sort of thing. Both groups need it, both groups want it. If we go after it together, we're a much more powerful force together than we are apart. And we talked for an hour and a half about the similarities and how that would work, and there were lots of really good questions that were raised on that, and it kind of hopefully will recharge that conversation again so that we can get to working together on things and not have any feeling that, well, gee, if you get this service, that means I'm going to lose something. That it doesn't have to be a give and take proposition.
And if both groups work together, we're going to have more influence in Des Moines.
Sure.
That's very important.
Yeah. And as the economy goes, more and more, society is looking at nonprofits and charitable organizations to help supplement services that government just can't afford to pay for anymore. So we need to work together on things like that. Lots of the service organizations are helping the same groups do different things, and if we can figure out a way to get all the service groups and human service organizations together to look at what it is everybody does, where everybody's funding comes from, and whether there's a way somehow that people's dollars can be better utilized.
And what made Jerry and I very aware of it was a couple years ago. We both noticed because of better health care, disabled people are living that much longer. So we're not only going to have the problem of having a disability, but we're going to have the problem of aging. So we might as well work together.
Well, and as everybody knows, Iowa is certainly not the youngest state in the country. You know, we are aging quick enough that there's a lot of concerns on that. And I mean, one of the examples, folks with Down syndrome 25 to 30 years ago had an average lifespan of about 30 years. And in recent studies, it's shown that those folks are living much closer to the average lifespan now because of all the healthcare and improvements that are going on. And you know, if you stop and think, every time any kind of a new treatment or medication or procedure comes along to either eradicate something or allow somebody to live longer with it, there's more of a demand on, you know, the end of life type services.
So instead of having a dual set of rules for each sector, we might as well come together and get things accomplished more adequately.
Exactly. And you know, one of the things that needs to happen more with that too is an increase in volunteerism. You know, as agencies get their dollars cut more and more, there's more of a dependence on volunteers to step in and help carry some of the weight and help people be able to do the services that there are. I mean, earlier this year, or the very end of last year, the Heritage Area Agency on Aging had to do a telethon for their seniors programs because this year their budget was cut by an amount that was causing them to cut 80,000 meals out of their service provision. And this wasn't for folks who had the choice of going downtown to eat at a restaurant or going to the senior center or having a meal delivered to them. This was for folks who, if they didn't get that service, they weren't going to eat that
They
day.
would go hungry.
And the community and areas around stepped up, and they were able to raise nearly $100,000 in, what was it, a 4-hour telethon. So we're all very lucky to live in the Johnson County area, because there are lots and lots of folks and lots of groups who are willing and do step up and help folks who aren't as well as off as they are. And without that, things would be incredibly sad, because folks would just go without whatever services. So a lot of the folks we had on last year kind of highlighted, what was going on in the area. And though folks with disabilities might not have been the number one group served, virtually every group we had on had something to do about folks with disabilities. We had the Kiwanis on, and the Kiwanis is the only service group in the country that has a specific branch for folks with disabilities. They're also working with the International Red Cross, trying to get rid of some of the malaria problems and that in third world countries. The shelter house doesn't have a lot of folks with disabilities, but they do have some, and proved to be very interesting as to all the programs they have going on there and the different things that they have people involved in, trying to get them back on their feet. And they've got a veteran-specific program that allows vets to stay there longer than the normal person who stops by would. And in fact, it's a different house, and they kind of help supervise one another and make sure that each other are, taking meds or doing whatever they're supposed to. But I had no idea that they were doing that kind of stuff. The REM program has a program that, when I first heard of it about 2 years ago, was just in the planning stages, where families who are interested can apply to have an individual with fairly significant disabilities that hasn't been able to make it in a group home with several other people and isn't doing well in a large facility, to bring that person into their home to live with their family. And there's a very extensive process that they go through for testing to make sure that this is the right person, they have the abilities. If it's a multiple person home, everybody goes through to make sure everybody's on the same page, and then they try to match them with an individual who has the same interests that they do. Clearly, if you've got somebody who is a devout Catholic, you probably don't want to place them in a home where somebody's an atheist. Might not work too well. I don't know how the vegetarian and carnivores get along, but stuff so that they have an interest. And we had a group of those folks on our show last year, and they were thrilled. They loved where they were at. They were looking forward to staying there, because this program actually is a program where they hope that this placement will be the last placement they have, that they will be with the family.
And this also is going to try to get across that most disabilities don't go away. So we're going to try to help people become part of a mixed society.
Right. We had the director of the Brain Injury Association on, discussing their programs and the specific needs of folks with brain injury, and how soon in the process that's really required. And that's another thing that will be dealt with in the Mental Health Disability Services redesign this year, is that currently folks with brain injury are not in the groups of people who services are mandated for and are entitled to get just because of the disability. So as a result, folks can go months and months without getting that critical treatment that they need to start rebuilding their lives. And clearly there are lots of us out there who don't think that's right either. It doesn't seem like there's any logic to programs where you pick one from this group and one from that group and this one, and then say, okay, well, we've taken care of everybody we need to.
And we also have to remind people that if we keep people in their own environment, they're going to live a lot longer than being put in a nursing home.
Well, that and the fact that that's what all the surveys for the last several years have shown, that given the choice, people don't want to go into some kind of a facility or an institution. They want to stay in their own home. And studies have shown that it costs about a third as much to give people the support they need to stay in their own home as it does to put them in a nursing home or someplace else. We had a show last year with a couple who, he had a disability, she didn't, and talked about the differences that placed on a relationship. And I found it interesting because they met each other online, and that was where that relationship began. And he was in Alabama and she was in Iowa City, and he has since moved to Iowa City, and it was kind of interesting the perspective they had, having been in that situation. A whole lot of it sounded real familiar, except that they've managed to keep theirs together, and I didn't. Is Tom Gillison here from Uptown Bills and the Extended Dream Foundation, who I mentioned earlier. We're going to be collaborating on our new show this year. Wondered what comments you have to make.
Well, first of all, welcome. We're glad you're back.
Thank you.
We're glad to be able to support the show and to have some of the episodes taped right here at Uptown Bill's. Right behind us is a picture of Bill. He's the guy with the beard, and his good friend Barry Morrow, who's on the other side with the guy with the tie, the young man with the tie. And Barry is the person who brought Bill to Iowa City, and that ended up after many years with a coffee shop and then with this place, Uptown Bill's, the bigger, badder Bill's.
Mm-hmm.
And we're always looking for opportunities to support programming for people of all abilities, and this is a nice addition to what we've been doing. We did have our name attached to the show last year, but I don't think we did anything. So
Well, yeah, we'll have to see about
maybe
that.
now and then we'll provide snacks or something like
There
that.
you go. That might work.
And thanks to you for the new ramp that made it possible to get up on the stage fairly easily. And
we're up here anyway.
yeah, so I'm looking forward to all kinds of possibilities for programs. You mentioned some of the ones from last year. I don't know if you know that the Brain Injury Association meets here
I do.
on the
every
second
once in a while.
Monday night of each month. There's both a group for individuals with brain injury and for their support folks or family members. And they meet at the same time on the second Monday. So maybe one of those Mondays you can come and tape a show here. We can arrange to
Possibly.
connect you. We also have a support group for folks along the autism spectrum that meets on Saturday afternoons. And again, perhaps we could connect you and organize a show with them.
That would be interesting.
And both Terry and I are looking for your keen understanding and input.
Keen, you don't hear that word too often. I grew up in a town with a radio station that was K-E-E-N, Keen. And every time I hear that word, I think of the radio station first, and then I remember, oh, it's an adjective too. So,
Yes, it is.
We'll be looking for your input.
thank you. Did you know, by the way, that we're coming up on a major event around Bill?
I do.
This will be his 100th birthday. If he were still alive, he would be 100. He actually died at age 70 in 1983.
Mhm.
So he would have been 100 this April the 13th. We're planning a big bash.
And we certainly will visit about that and
Yeah.
all the other things related to Bill's and the Extend the Dream Foundation throughout the year, because there's many, many fascinating things going on that, bless you, that I think folks would be interested in, and certainly would want to welcome everybody down to look for a book, have a cup of coffee, and
Watch the show, and when
Yeah.
it's taped here, we
Yeah.
can let people know beforehand, and we'll set out some chairs for them and have
Certainly
them
can
sit
do
out in the
that.
audience.
there's
So-
lots of interesting things going on in the evenings here too, but
Well, thank you for having me here.
okay. And thanks everybody out there, and we look forward to
Your input.
the next time being with you, having the new show.
And having your input. Thank you. Good evening.